Question 11. The penalty for stating a known false fact is A, $750, B, $1,500, C, $10,000, or D, $75,000. Which one is it? You want to know your fines because you're going to see fines in your exam. I've taken the exam twice, and I'll tell you, you will get a paragraph or two of the story. They'll give you the story about who's asking for a notary appointment and what's going on during that appointment. Then they'll slide it in there and ask you about the fees. It's without fail. I've seen the fees mentioned on both exams that I've taken. So what you want to do is on a flashcard, write down however it's best for you to learn one flashcard per fine and then list what that fine would be for. Color coded, I did mine in green, and study those fines. They will be there. Now, of course, if you guess, you have a 25% chance of getting it right, but why not get those right? Study your fines. It's very important. It also teaches you what you should not be doing as a notary. The correct answer is C, $10,000. There is a $10,000 penalty if a notary willfully states as true a material fact that the notary public knows is false in a certificate of acknowledgement. So you want to make sure you know these fines. They will be on your exam. Hello again. This is Renee Bass, Notary Public, and we are going to be studying for our Notary Public exam. And I feel bad because it's been a while since I posted, so I'm just jumping into it. Question 12. Two credible witnesses, A, are not allowed. B, must be over the age of 21. C, must be fingerprinted. Or D, none of the above. Credible witnesses are people who personally know the signer. The notary public doesn't have to know any of these people. So these two credible witnesses who personally know the signer have to show you ID. You always have to check their ID and note everything down in your journal. And it's also good to note that if you don't check the ID, there is a $10,000 fine for that. So what is the answer? The answer is D, none of the above. Number 13, I like, just because it's super easy, because this is information you would have read about when you're actually researching how to become a notary public. So question 13 is, when do you officially become a notary? Please don't get this one wrong. Like I said, I'm sure you've researched this, but if not, let's go. A, when you pass the exam. B, when the Secretary of State sends your commission. C, when you do your first certificate. Or D, when your oath and bond are filed. So this information is, again, usually found when you're researching how to become a notary public, because there are checklists. And if you don't have a checklist, let me know. I'm happy to help with that. But so let's take this question and compare these responses. So A, would you pass the exam? So think about it. You have gone to hopefully your city where you're taking the exam. Sometimes you have to go to other cities in your county, but you're going to your city, you take your exam, you're done with the exam. Does that make you a notary? So think about it. No, it won't. You don't even know if you've passed it. You've just taken the exam. That's it, right? You haven't done anything else. There's more to it. You can't just pass the exam to be a notary. So right away, let's take that one out. B, when the Secretary of State sends your commission. Now, that sounds like it could make sense because the Secretary of State is our business entity. All notary publics should know their Secretary of State website. how to retrieve information and other things. So because they sent your commission, that makes it sound official because they are a large business entity and they're sending you your commission. But that in itself does not mean you are a notary public. So let's take that one out. C, when you do your first certificate. No, absolutely not. So just because you're doing your first certificate doesn't mean that you are then a notary. It doesn't. You have to do something before you complete your first certificate, okay? Which is D, when your oath and bond are filed. When you receive your commission, you're going to get an envelope. And inside that envelope are your instructions from the Secretary of State that you've passed the exam. They give you your commission and they give you instructions on what to do next. So when I got mine, I followed them and I still made a mistake. It was so interesting. And I think it's the wording on some of the documents. So the first time that I got my commission, literally, I read it wrong somehow and I ended up paying an extra $15. That's okay. You know, you make mistakes and you live, learn, and can tell about that. So be sure when you get your commission packet that you're reading those instructions for your next step. One of those steps is you take, and here's what I did, okay, because I consider myself fairly organized. I took my entire packet with my commission, put it in my file folder. I have a little file folder I carry around. I brought it to the county clerk's office, laid out all my paperwork to hand to the clerk per the instructions. I just followed the instructions one by one. I had a great clerk because he also was very organized and had his papers lined up. That way I didn't miss a step. And this time I didn't spend the extra $15. I felt so silly, but you know, that's how you do learn, by making mistakes. So it was just $15. I can live with that. But you're going to take all your paperwork and with the county clerk, you're going to file your oath and bond. So in that packet that you receive from whatever company you do your course with. So if you're a first-time notary, you take a 6-hour course. They're going to send you, usually you're offered to purchase materials through that business that you are then taking your class with, right? So they will send you things like a copy of your bond. You could pay for all this stuff in a package deal. And that's what I did the last time I took my exam. I took a package deal. So they sent me my bond. So I said, cool. I took that bond, and I believe you get 2 copies of it. So I took the bond to the county clerk. And again, I spread out all my papers following the Secretary of State's steps on how to file that oath and bond. Had all my paperwork done with the county clerk's office, and you literally take an oath right there with the county clerk. So that's when you know you are a notary at that point. You are all filed with the county. You're good. It was long-winded, but I hope that helps somebody else avoid what I did, which is pay an extra $15 because, yeah, it's a long story, but reading the steps to take can be confusing because they actually give you instructions for 2 different ways you could file your oath and bond. I did mine in person. I prefer to do everything in person. That way I have my receipts right there and I keep everything in a file. And I can show you mine and go in depth on that. If you think that'll help you, let me know. Happy to make a video on it, and I promise I won't take so long to make the next video. Number 14, the notary stamp may be A, triangle, B, rectangular, C, only a circle, or D, none of the above. This you have to know because, of course, when you get your notary commission, you order your supplies, you're getting a stamp. This time around, I got 2 stamps, so I'm good to go, because sometimes these self-inking stamps don't work right. I had one malfunction on me before, so it's like I ordered 2 and they're both a little different, but you need to know that whatever company you're ordering your supplies with is a company that is mentioned on the Secretary of State. You can find some guidance there, but you need to know as part of your exam as well what your stamp characteristics have to be. What shape is it? So you need to know from the Secretary of State Notary Handbook or your class, your 6-hour class that is giving you the instructions on what you need to know to become a notary and to pass this exam. Okay, so you're going to read it there. Trust me on that. Know your shapes. So A is triangle. Nope, it's nowhere listed that it could be on a triangle. And just think kind of with common sense, and I'm not saying this to put anybody down, but with common sense, if you stamp with a triangle, there is very little room, especially at the apex of that triangle, where you're going to write stuff. It's all going to be at the bottom because there's not enough room to write. So triangle, you could toss that out from your readings and just from thinking that a triangle is not going to have enough space to write down information that has to be on your stamp. So let's take triangle out. B, rectangular. Okay, that sounds right, because you do need to put information on your stamp and have a seal from the state of California. So if you've ever seen a stamp, or especially a notary stamp, then you know they can be rectangular. So, okay, I like that. C, only a circle. Anytime you have an absolute like only, beware. Beware, because only a circle. We're going to take that out. That is incorrect. It's not just only a circle. And then D, none of the above. I think we could find a better answer, and our answer is going to be B, rectangular. Now, check this out. Your notary seal can be either circular or rectangular, and there's different dimensions, right? So only a circle wouldn't work, because you could have it circular or rectangular. So only being the absolute, you're going to automatically take that one out. Rectangular is the only option that is true. It can be rectangular. You're looking at the question too. The notary stamp may be rectangular, not just only circular, okay? So when we're reading the Secretary of State Handbook, it is very clear what our notary seals must look like. And there's a lot of information on the seals. So yeah, rectangular makes so much sense. And that's because your name, your commission number, it's going to state that you're a notary public for the state of California. It's going to state your county, and it's going to have your notary commission expiration date. And usually on the left side, there is a big enough seal. So that's a lot of information for a stamp. So just commit it to memory that that's going to fit on a nice rectangular box. It is not just only a circle. You can get a circular stamp, and that circular stamp may not be over 2 inches in diameter. So again, that's a lot of information to put on a stamp, and that's why rectangular, for all these options offered, is the best answer. And that kind of goes into question 15 now. The size of the stamp could be A, a 6-foot diameter, B, 1 inch width by 2.5 inches in length, C, 2.5 inches by 6 inches, or D, a 1-foot square. Let's look at our options. So A says a 6-foot diameter. We could toss that out. Again, using common sense, 6-foot diameter, that would be huge. So we're going to take A out. So now there's 3 choices left, which means you have a higher probability, even if you're guessing how to figure this one out. B, 1 inch by 2.5 inches in length. So again, when we're looking at the Secretary of State Handbook or your course paperwork, you're going to be given and provided the dimensions of this seal. So, okay, so that sounds reasonable, right? We're talking about inches. And then C, 2.5 inches by 6 inches. That sounds kind of reasonable too, so let's keep those. And then D, a 1 foot square. Well, we already know it's not going to be square. Let's take that one out. Now we're left with B and C, you guys. See how we could eliminate? The process of elimination is working for us. So let's look at B and C. Okay, so from the Secretary of State handbook, we know that your rectangular square may not be more than 1 inch width by 2.5 inches in length. So we're going to go with B. So they're giving us the exact dimensions. If you have a circular seal, it's not going to be over 2 inches in diameter. So it's not very big. It's not very big. You're not going to look at 6 foot, 1 square foot. Like, that's way too big. So just by thinking, again, with common sense, you're going to see that you're not going to use a foot, that the inches are your answers. So with A and B, I'm sorry. With B and C, you're going to have a good 50% chance. But because we're committing a lot of things to memory, our stamp size is B. You knocked that one out the park. You got it right. So let's keep going. Let's keep this train rolling. Number 16. If you are one of the following concerning a document, you must not notarize it. You have to know what your limitations are. So you must not notarize it. A, agent. B, employer. C, lawyer. Or D, trustor or trustee. As a notary, you cannot notarize your own signature if you will be benefiting from this document. Now, the legal terms, hold on, let me get the legal definition for you here. So, a notary public is prohibited from performing any notarial act if they have direct financial or beneficial interest in the transaction. So what of these, agent, employer, lawyer, trustor, or trustee, let's take a wild guess. I want you guys to get. So which one sounds the most legal, right? That's how you want to go about this question. So I'm thinking of the person who maybe is stuck on this and you have a 25% chance, right? What would you pick? What sounds the most legal for a notary to not then provide this notarization? 17. The fine for overcharging for a non-immigration form is. Now, you have to know how much you could charge for different documents, and those numbers will be reviewed in your course, as well as those fees are on the Secretary of State website. You can't just make up a fee to charge someone because maybe it's taking you a lot of labor to produce this. No, you have to follow the Secretary of State's fees. So you will be fined if you overcharge for a non-immigration form. Is it A, up to $10, B, up to $1,000, C, up to $75,000, or D, up to $750? Here's the answer, and you want to make sure you know this because this is a steep fine. Charging more than the prescribed fees is a $750 fine. Can you imagine? You think you're making money off of a signature, and yeah, $750, that is way too much money. So you want to make sure you know how much you could charge for each type of service. So if you're going to have someone sign for an acknowledgement, it is up to $15 per signature. Some people do charge $10, but up to $15 you could charge. Jurat is the same, up to $15 for every person taking an oath. Deposition, you can charge $30 plus $7 for administering the oath and $7 for the certificate of deposition. So that when you have some money-making skills on, if you think about it. For certifying a copy of a power of attorney, $15. And any line item that you copy from your journal, if you're requested to do so, 30 cents per line item, 30 cents per page. So you want to make sure you are charging the right amount. You never want to go over. It would suck if you went under, but it would really suck with a $750 fine. So please remember that. 18. The fine for failing to notify the state that your stamp or journal was lost is A, up to $10, B, up to $1,000, C, up to $1,500, or D, up to $750. I've heard of people losing their stamps and journals. You want to always keep it in a safe place. You have to have a locked cabinet to put your items in. And when you're out and about, working, you want to make sure you have a good notary bag. Keep that bag with you. I protect it like I would protect my purse, okay? I make sure I have it under my control at all times. And maybe, I'm just a little too safe, but I'd rather be too safe than very sorry and have to pay a fine. So how much is that going to be? Now, something important to note is if you ever lose, damage, or have your journal lost or stolen, you want to make sure right away you notify the Secretary of State by certified or registered mail. That's when you have to go into the post office and make sure you certify it and register it, okay? You have to let them know. You have to let them know the dates covered in your notary journal entries. You have to provide your commission number, the expiration date of your commission, and I would make a police report and then give them a copy of that. That's very, very important because you have to remember, this is a record. This is a very, very important item in your notary bag. You don't want to ever misplace it. Like, always have a systematic way in which you're taking your journal out and putting it back in. Try not to lose it. Try not to damage it, leaving it out somewhere. Like, really be anal about putting it up when you're finished with it. So you do have to notify the Secretary of State. That is so, so very important. It's such an important journal. I can't stress that enough. The correct answer is C, $500. So that's how important it is. It's worth $500. So you want to make sure you know at all times where your journal is. Okay, piggybacking off of that, number 19, willful failure to provide a peace officer with a journal when requested is punishable by a civil penalty up to A, $750, B, $1,500, C, $500, or D, $2,500. The only reason that a peace officer would ask you for your journal is, of course, when it can be used as evidence of a criminal offense. So again, that is a serious nature. So you do have to surrender your journal. When you surrender the journal, that peace officer will give you a receipt for it. So that is then provided. You give a copy of that, of course, to the Secretary of State. You have to do that by certified mail within 10 days of your surrender. So again, you want to make sure you're communicating the status of your journal, if it's not in your possession, to the Secretary of State. That's your takeaway. But you do have 10 days to do this. You, again, have to comply if your journal is going to be used, of course, during an investigation. That's just what you have to do to comply. The fine for not surrendering your journal is steep, y'all. $2,500. Woo! So number 19 is D. $2,500. That's a lot of money. Remember that. Just remember how, if you don't comply with a peace officer's instructions, like it's going to cost you. So that's a pretty steep amount. It is the most amount in this choice of questions. So think about it like that. That is a hefty fine. It's $2,500. Number 20. What is the fine for failing to post signs in English and in the other language that you use that you are not an attorney and cannot give legal advice? That's a big one, because you really have to stress that you are not an attorney, because in some translations, Notary Public in another language makes an attorney reference, or it will literally translate to you are an attorney. So you have to be careful with that one. A, up to a $750 fine. B, up to a $1,500 fine and at least 1 year suspension of your commission. And on the second time, they're going to revoke your commission for life. C, 2 to 4 years in prison. Girl. And D, $75,000 fine. Which one is it? It is so important to note that when you're advertising in another language, you make sure you make it crystal clear that you are not an attorney, you are not offering legal advice. In Spanish, and this is important for California because we do have a lot of Spanish speakers here, you want to make sure you don't use the literal translation of notario publico. And I'm sorry for my, I know my accent's not great, but you know what I mean. Because in Spanish, that's going to translate to being an attorney. So you have to be very careful with that. Your advertising has to be just very, very clear that you are a notary. You are not an immigration specialist or a consultant. You have to make sure it is crystal clear you are a notary and a notary only. You can't list other services. It's very, very strict for that. So what could the answer be? Let's know our fines. Because this is taken so seriously, it is B, up to a $1,500 fine and at least 1 year suspension of your commission. So they're going to pull your stuff from you. You've worked very hard to earn it, and they will pull your commission. So, of course, for a year, you're not able to work as a notary. That's something you actually want to avoid, right? But because it's taken seriously, they are going to take that from you. You want to make sure, again, that if you are advertising, that you are clear. And even if someone calls you, because I have had these phone calls where someone calls and says, I need help preparing these documents. And I make it clear to them that they are to bring me the completed document after they have it drawn up for them, usually by an attorney, especially a lot of power of attorneys, things like that, that some people think they can print something online and then bring it to you and you're going to help them fill it out. Do not do that, because that's you offering a legal service. You're not offering legal services. You're not preparing documents to people. So be crystal clear when you are advertising, when people are calling you. Make sure that they understand they are to bring you a completed document. Not one question should be left blank. If there's something where they're not, maybe it's not applicable, you're going to put NA. Like, they have to fill everything out, because what would happen is they could go back with that empty space and write something in, and then it makes it look like you notarized the document, and just that one question response could get you in a whole heap of trouble, and it's going to make it look like you were aware of that. They brought that to you. So always make sure that every question they have answered, they can't leave it blank. and you can't help them fill it out. Even if you know the answer, you cannot help them fill it out. You are a notary public and a notary public only. So there we go. We went over some more questions for your notary public exam. Hope this has helped. Let me know in the comments section. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again next week.